Okay, joined now by Tina Griffin, the counterculture mom. Tina, thanks for your time today.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
We have a couple of really interesting stories, both dealing with Facebook. And the first one, Facebook now is going to ban anti-vaccine ads with very few exceptions. Talk about the story.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me because when you look at who's behind making the money in our culture today, in our world, they're all connected. So anything where you want to talk about safety measures and think outside the box. I mean, I don't vaccinate my kids for the reasons being I've looked up Bill Gates for the last decade, actually 27 years, and I know full well what is in vaccines. And now a lot of parents are waking up. And of course, if we don't want our kids vaccinated and Facebook has money to be made behind that and are backed by people who push the vaccines, they're now not letting any of that think outside the box content be on social media, which is crazy because it strips our freedom of speech. So it's very frustrating. They are taking down all ads now, Facebook, anything to do with anti-vax. And also, if people look up anti-vax information, what happens is they get linked now to the World Health Organization, the CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and other links that are obviously pro-vaccine. The other issue was that there was actually a case, filed a suit case here that happened. Check this out. On January 15, 2020, the Associations of American Physicians and Surgeons filed suit in the U.S. District Court for District of Columbia. Plaintiffs allege that defendant Adam Schiff has abused government power and infringed on their free speech rights. Absolutely, hands down, they're correct. In February and March 2019, Representative Schiff contacted Google, Facebook, Amazon to encourage them to discredit information on vaccines. Within 24 hours, Dr. Duke, Amazon removed the popular videos Vaxxed and Shoot 'em Up, the truth about vaccines from its platform. This is craziness. Freedom of speech is being stripped and Americans aren't allowed to actually do research on their own about what they want to do with their kids.
So what is the party line? When Facebook says it's doing this, obviously they're not going into the explanation you just gave. How do they curtain their suppression here? What do they say the reason for this is?
The reason that Facebook is taking it down, they say it's basically dangerous content. They say that people should be vaxxed. They say it's not government endorsed. And if the government says that vaccines are definitely safe and honestly becoming mandatory, I know 3 states on the East Coast just made it mandatory that people have to get flu shots. That happened in the last couple of hours. So if that's taking place in our country, if it's not government endorsed and government approves it, they are basically saying it's false information, which completely is false. The government is mandating unfactual content is what's happening.
Well, you also have a situation where you have the governor of New York on the East Coast, Governor Cuomo, and you've got Gavin Newsom in California, arguably the two most prominent liberal progressive governors in the country today, who have both said that they don't trust any vaccine that would be manufactured while Donald Trump is president. So they say, on the one hand, people who want to challenge vaccines or get more information, they're being censored. But now you have nothing happening to Gavin Newsom or Cuomo, who say we're not accepting a vaccine under Donald Trump's leadership unless we verify it. And Facebook has no problem with those objections.
Yeah, obviously not, because Donald Trump is not for an RFID chipped nanobot technology, AI, DNA changing vaccine going into our bloodstream. And if he's anti that, of course, they're not going to want a natural vaccine coming from Donald Trump. They want to boost him out of there. And we have to be praying for his protection in order to put their RFID chipped DNA changing vaccine in all of our bloodstreams, which will never happen as long as I'm on this earth to my body.
Well, Facebook is being grilled right now, along with Twitter and Google, at the White House. On the other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit more of it. Back with Tina Griffin, the counterculture mom, to continue our discussion of the practices of censoring and removing information by Facebook and Google and Twitter. Talking now about Facebook. We mentioned right before the break that as we speak, the CEOs, the executives of these major companies, Google, Facebook, Twitter, are being grilled before a hearing committee at the heart of Washington, D.C. by the government. And so we're finding now that people are beginning to push back about this, mostly about the Hunter Biden issue. But however, something else that Facebook did that I think kind of surprised a lot of people, Mark Zuckerberg reversed his policy and is now finally banning all Holocaust denial content. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm glad he's finally actually saying that he's allowing the Holocaust content to be on Facebook. But the crazy thing is with all this, he's Jewish. And so Mark Zuckerberg, because he was Jewish, struggled for a number of years saying, man, I want to give people the freedom of speech to post their content on Facebook to say that the Holocaust never happened, which is completely a lie from the pit of hell. We have enough evidence to prove that it absolutely did happen. So he's struggling with freedom of speech, letting them say what they say, which is completely falsified and very provable it happened, versus the fact that it did happen, and to deny that it happened is actually very offensive for the people that have lost family members because of the Holocaust. And it's very important on American soil that students across America in our school systems know that it happened. The problem with stupid Common Core and demonic Bill Gates is the fact that he removed all of that from a majority, if not all, of the history books in our country. Which, why would he do that? He doesn't want people to get the red flag, what could happen to have a Holocaust, a Nazi Germany scenario on American soil. And I honestly believe that that could easily happen. With the research I've done over 3 decades, we could be there. So to remove that info from books is just wild to me. I'm glad that Mark Zuckerberg has a change of heart, but then that makes me question who has the power to decide what is false and what is true, posting this information on Facebook, because a lot of content like the true vaccine information they won't allow because he's anti-vax, but for Holocaust info, now he changed his mind.
Yeah, it is kind of mind-numbing, isn't it, that you've got a situation where you mentioned that Zuckerberg is Jewish. It took him such a long time to actually deplatform those radical deniers of the Holocaust, which seems like a no-brainer. Meanwhile, Jack Dorsey, the head of Twitter, just today at this hearing defended the supreme leader of Iran who called for the murder of Jews. So Dorsey came out today and said he supports the right of the supreme leader of Iran to threaten death to Jews. That's free speech. But they deplatformed Donald Trump for a number of ads that have been very, very questionably fact-checked.
Absolutely. It's ridiculous. We see more and more truth being erased, and yet in Scripture it clearly tells in the end days, truth will be looked upon as evil and evil as truth or good. And so we're in those times. So what can we do with this situation? We have to make sure that the history books our kids are learning from and reading from are not Common Core based, and honestly, not public school education. I would highly suggest at this point in our country, we must know about the founding fathers, how America was formed. We must get them in a Christian school education platform. If they're already learning online, switch them from the communist focus of Bill Gates over to a Christian curriculum like a Becca. That's what I use for my kids. Secondly, we need to pray for Mark Zuckerberg, because he could easily be being pressured by all these elites to post certain things, take down certain things. The fact checker people, we've seen that they're run by China and Bill Gates and his posse. So of course they're going to say Mark something is untrue news on social media, because they're the ones that are backing that. They don't want the truth exposed about who they are and what they're up to in this country. So make sure your kids are getting a quality education that's truthful, look up information. Definitely download our Counterculture Mom app, because that app is loaded with content. 18 of us on this team are pumping out daily on true news, and no one is censoring our content. All you have to do to download the app is go to a Google Play or iTunes App Store, download Counterculture Mom app. You'll have it on the phone, and then click on the premium section, upper right corner, and for $2.99 you can get all the content. We have a lot of stuff that's freebie, but the premium content has our trending news stories and our pop culture alerts, a must for every parent in America today.
Tina Griffin, the Counterculture Mom, thanks again for your time today.